if you don't have a good process in place, well, then how are you going to be able to repeat that time and time again predictably?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Process Lab. This is the show where we talk about process and everything process. So today, I'm really excited to be joined by Ragan Frick. He is the founder of Bare Iron Works, where they manufacture products for contractors by contractors. With a lifetime of hands-on construction experience, Ragan brings practical, field-tested solutions to contractors. He's here to share today how Bare Iron Works product can help you save time, boost productivity, and makes your job easier. Ragan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the process world, we love to talk to folks from manufacturing, but before we even jump into what you're doing at Bare Iron Works, I'd love to just get a little bit more about your background, your history with process, and let's go ahead and start there.
Yeah, so my background is, I started in the construction field. I went to school for construction, learned that, which I feel like construction itself is a lot of processes, very big and small. It's a lot to manage. And so you have to be able to bring that down to a manageable scale and make sure that you're doing it in the right order, because there's a whole sequence with it. And if you do it wrong and do the process wrong, then it can cost a lot of money and cost a lot of time. And you commonly see that in construction with projects going behind schedule and over budget. And so I worked in the commercial construction field for a few years. And then we had this idea for our business to make a rock screen product for contractors. It was something that I kind of was doing as a side business in college, just so I could make some extra money. And I got a little shop and was welding up these screens and selling them online. And then around COVID time, we decided, let's go ahead and turn this into a bigger business. My dad's stepmother and I started this business, and I was originally just going to work on it part-time, but as the business grew and we implemented more processes into it, more systems, it started to grow, and now we're all working full-time on the business. And so we have a couple different product lines that we make for our customers, and all of them are for contractors. We have our rock screens for sizing your soil. We have our bedding boxes, which help with trenching operation, and we have some environmental products called concrete washout tubs and tracking pads.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for the background. And just to contextualize a little bit more, give us just a little bit more about the products. Like, what is a rock screen? What is it used for? Part of this is my own fascination with how these things fit into process. But yeah, just give me like a 30-second on each of these products if you could.
Yeah. So the rock screen, right? You got big rocks and you need to have smaller soil because you can't just have a road built with giant rocks in it, right? Is a great example. Okay. So you got to screen it out. So we have a rock screen with a system where you can change out the screen sizing. That way you can have whatever size that you need and screen the soil. And there's a whole process there with setting that up, because you can set it up in a certain way that, you can get faster turnaround times and produce more dirt an hour, which saves you more money. And so those are primarily used for construction sites, but all industries use them anytime you need to screen things out. It's just a giant sifter that you use with a loader. Okay. The bedding boxes, they're used in a trenching operation. So whenever you're installing pipe into the ground, say a water line, right? You need to have what's called bedding sand around that pipe. And so when it's buried in the ground, and say you have a heavy truck drive over that part of the ground, that pipe's under pressure. And if it doesn't have even pressure on it, say it's got like some bigger rocks or some random objects in it, when that truck goes over it, it can actually burst that pipe and cause an explosion, right? And then your water line's broken. Now you got to do an emergency repair and it's a mess. So they always ask you to bed the pipe with sand. So a bedding box, right? Say you got a couple miles of trench. The bedding box contains the sand in it, and then you take your excavator and you pull it along that trench while you have somebody else in a loader or a skid steer bringing soil to keep that box full. So what it allows you to do is keep your soil where you need it without wasting it along the way. Because if you had to pick it up and move it each time, you'd waste just a little bit of soil. And even if you're losing just a little bit, over a couple miles, you're going to lose a lot. And that stuff's expensive.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then our environmental control products, our flagship lines, the concrete washout tubs. So whenever concrete truck gets done pouring on a construction site, you have to wash it out. Otherwise, it's going to ruin the truck. Well, you can't just dump that down the drain. And so every construction site requires some type of containment method to contain that waste. And so that's what the washout tub is. And then the tracking pads are kind of a similar product. They go on the exit of a job site. And when have muddy tires on your pickup trucks or your equipment, whatever's going on and off the site, you're not actually allowed to let any soil leave the site on your permits. That's the best way to keep, our water clean. And so the tracking pad knocks the mud off of your tires. That way it doesn't track out on the public roads.
Okay. So this seems like a pretty, out of all the products that could be made, I guess my question to you is why these products? Like why this scope? Maybe give us a little more context about where this fits into your journey into the construction realm.
Yeah, so it was the products. We started out with the rock screens, and it was an idea that my dad had. He worked in construction as well. He worked in civil construction, which is more dirt moving. And he would make a couple, sell them at a Ritchie Brothers auction. And then when I went to school, he told me, hey, how about you do this as a side business? And that's where I started welding them. And then I made a website and started selling them online. And then we just kind of, I guess, stumbled upon a niche that was needed in the industry because all of a sudden I was getting a lot of calls, and it was like, I was getting really busy to the point that do I continue with school or do I continue with this business? And so I continued with school, and I didn't have any plans of starting it back up, but we kind of regrouped and we're like, I think this could be a good business. It feels like there's a need in the market for it, because there's other ones out there, but they're really expensive. They're very complex. And a lot of them aren't like manufactured in a true manufacturing sense, where you're trying to minimize waste and spend as little time as possible making them. So they get a little bit too much for something that you're just dumping rocks on, and it's going to wear out eventually. So we try to make one that's strong, that will last as long as possible, and at the same time using simple principles. That way it can be cost effective for every contractor.
That's great. And that's such a great entrepreneurial story, right? In a way, it's you and your family identified this very simple need you had in your own. And then it's almost as if this business idea came for you. You didn't even think, you had thought at various times, this might not be something I even can do right now with school and stuff, but the market had such a need that it came back and almost pressured you, it sounds like, back into business. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it just seemed like too good of an opportunity to pass up. And, working in the construction industry, it's long hours, a lot of stress, especially if you're good at it, because you get put on the harder projects. And, it's we wanted to kind of do something a little bit easier. Manufacturing, it's definitely challenging trying to switch industries, but the good thing is you're still building something, so you can apply those same principles to it.
Yeah. And speaking of which, you had talked about a lot of good lean principles were coming through. And when you talked about you guys were able to build the screens cheaper with a more scaled manufacturing mindset involved, where did that come from? Did you learn lean in your background, or is that something that you've just been cultivating personally? I'd love to know sort of where that process knowledge has been fitting into your journey. Yeah.
So I did learn lean management a little bit when I was doing a construction management program. And when I was learning those principles, it was like, okay, well, I went through the product designs, because we only had one product design at one time. It was called our Cub rock screen, and that one was just for a skid steer. I was like, I want to expand our product line, but I need to figure out how can I optimize my cuts so that I'm minimizing my waste. How can I use it so I can share the same types of materials across the different product lines? And then I kind of went through and made the designs a little bit better and improved upon them. And then when we went to full scale and did this full time, we even took it to the next level, and we start sitting down and say, okay, now we got multiple product lines. How can we minimize waste across all the product lines and share the same type of material across all of them? Now it allows us to buy some of the core materials in bulk and get a cheaper price on that, as well as keeping a good inventory of it, so that way we can make those with a quick turnaround time. One of the things about lean management is just-in-time deliveries. and just getting the material like right when you need it. But that's not necessarily always the right method. I mean, I think COVID showed that, is that if it's something that might be hard to get, you might want to have a little bit of an inventory on it. Or if it's something that's really high demand, you definitely want to have a little bit of inventory on it so you can have a really quick turnaround.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really interesting to see that you brought lean into your business early. And then from just listening, it sounds like you've had early success and with the waste reduction and just the philosophy in general, and you want to scale your business that way. Because I'm only commenting that because a lot of businesses, they start to build an operation, it gets fast, and then they build a lot of waste as they go. And then they say, oh, we need lean retroactively to cut down on this. Right. But it sounds like your business is kind of being built with that lean mindset from the start. I'd love to hear your thoughts on early success with it, how you're kind of thinking about building your business around these lean principles.
Yeah. So it just doing it early on, like, you know, it's more efficient to do things right in the beginning, right? At the same time, earlier on, it's hard to identify exactly what you're going to need. You know, we did have a little bit of luck by identifying that there was demand for these product lines earlier on before we really got a lot bigger. But it was just something that we kind of managed along the way. And as we moved into it, you know, we tried to streamline our operations when we set up our shop. You know, a lot of welding shops, they just like set it up and they say, okay, here's the welder here, here's the saw here, we're just going to cut and fabricate. And a lot of them will price out each product like by the quote. And that's how we were doing it at the time. You know, it's like we were estimating it every time somebody called the phone. So now we tried to implement it. So, okay, we're going to actually manufacture these goods. We're going to streamline the operation so that it moves through the shop in one line. So you have the, you know, an assembly line in a sense, even though it's a simpler one. It starts at one end, ends at the other end. And then we put a system in place that we can manage the inventory, identify where the key demand is. That way we can be ahead of customer orders, as well as just kind of analyzing what materials we're using the most too, and tracking that information. And just doing it along the way helps us make some better decisions, because we go, okay, every time we make this product, we have this much of a piece of waste behind it. Is there any other product that we can utilize that waste for and make another supplemental product or something that somebody else would like? And that whole process there has really helped us. I mean, we have minimal scrap. You know, we only throw away pieces that are like 2 foot or less into the recycling bin.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And it's a great example and story that you're telling about how a business from the start, if you're applying the lean and the waste reduction, it makes a huge difference. A lot of now we talk about on the show is lean digital services. It's very refreshing to have somebody talking about how lean, again, this is where lean was born in the manufacturing setting. And just to save even the slightest materials, it makes you so much more competitive. Like it's kind of this fun story of you talking about even saving a little here and there. Do you pass a lot of that saving down to your customers? Is that, because it sounds like you've implied that versus your competitors, but how are you kind of manifesting that savings into your business?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing out of it is like, we're, as far as I know, we're the only grizzly manufacturer that publishes our price. You can just go on our website and purchase it. Just like Amazon, add it to your cart, customize it a little bit, order goes in, it goes straight onto our manufacturing software. And so it's like, because we know our costs and we know what the price is going to be, we can advertise that and we can just make it easy for the customer to buy that. Where if you're not following these principles, you're not tracking these costs, and you're not trying to make it efficient, you know, you could be all over the place. And if you don't have a good process in place, well, then how are you going to be able to repeat that time and time again, predictably?
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. This is a real process. This is how it should be in most places. So you said you learned a little about lean management in your academic background. Have you, since getting into your own business, studied it further? How have you continued your lean journey after school, if you have?
You know, I haven't really done too much outside of school. I studied it just a little bit with how it applies to construction, because you know, construction can get overwhelming, especially if you're on a very tight job site. You know, you got to build a skyscraper in a little tiny plot of land, and you got to get all that material in there and do it the right way, right? So we learned it kind of in that sense. I haven't really expanded too much more on it. Outside of that, I think there's always things to learn, right? There's always areas to improve. I've put a lot of my focuses on building out the software systems that help us manage the process. That way we can know what's going on, make it easier for our managers to manage the process and have insights into the business. And that's where I put a lot of my efforts in recent years.
Yeah, and it's great. And just from talking to you, and I talk to a lot of people about process, you seem to have a strong intuition around just the lean principles and how that applies throughout the business model. So I think it speaks a lot to you, but also this person who taught you your original lean management class, he or she must have been pretty awesome also.
Yeah, I went to Colorado State University, and they have like a really good program for construction. I mean, I think it's one of the better ones out there. A lot of colleges don't offer a program like that. But a lot of people don't even know how complex construction can be. And it's, you take the principles of business management, but you have to completely tweak it for a completely different scenario.
Yeah, that's fantastic. A lot of universities and graduate programs don't have a process or lean class. They don't have a process-oriented class, which I find so odd, especially since, you're a perfect example of this young business you're building in a tactile space like construction. The process stuff there, I mean, I think it's huge. I get the sense that the way you're scaling compared to others who don't have this knowledge or this perspective, you're going to outcompete everyone. Even like you said, just the process transparency and the cost transparency is a huge advantage. It sounds like this is just going all through your operation, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. And, I do agree with that. I mean, like, I never saw any processes being taught in any other classes outside of the construction program. And I think it's just because it's so process intensive. I mean, we get down, like, a perfect example is our scheduling class. You schedule out a 2-year construction project and how you're going to build a building. You start and you put every single little activity that has to happen. And you have to figure out, how am I going to get this done by the deadline, even if it seems like it's impossible. And you have to sequence all of those operations in the right order so that it will go as efficiently as possible. And it really drives you down in the process. Then you get into like the field management part of it. They had a class at CSU where you actually built a little tiny building in the garage, in the shop there, and they would tear it down every semester and let every class start over. And so you learn the process and you learn the proper sequence to do it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, most buildings are built the same. It's the same process. They're just a different shape.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's always great to hear how they're building these programs better and better for folks like you. And then you can go out and you can use those skills to start your own business. So what's next for your business? It sounds like you've got a great foundation. You have a strong process orientation. What do you see happening next for you guys?
Right now we're really just trying to get our brand recognition out there, because I feel like our manufacturing processes, we've done a pretty good job at making those efficient. We have a good team in place that knows how to do those processes properly. We have good software systems in place to manage those processes. And now we're saying, okay, we've got that. We can make stuff now. We got to do a little bit better at selling stuff. And so it's just getting our name out there, because we know that people need our products all across the country. But it's just it's another process, right? How do we effectively get our brand out in front of the right people? Because there are people that have bought products from our competitors and then stumbled upon us and go, wow, I wish I knew about you. Or we've even had like a rental company in our own town say, hey, I didn't even know that this was made in town. I didn't know we had customers that needed these. We didn't even know they were made in town. So there's a process there that we're trying to learn and develop, and to be able to get nationwide, because we've shipped to all 50 states and we've shipped to Guam. We've shipped to all the little islands where the products are needed everywhere.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. And then products or marketing and sales is a whole different process realm.
Yes.
Once you get to that point where you're ready to scale. And I'll tell you, the fun thing about having your own business is at every scale, it's like building a brand new business in some ways. So you get to kind of start a whole new operating model analysis, and you get to evolve in whole different ways. So it'll be an exciting journey, and it sounds like you guys are on the right track. And I have some basic questions, and just this is my ignorance of the construction market. is it for everyone? Who is your target market generally? Like who is in the most need of these products?
So contractors mostly are the most needed of products, and that's our target demographic. But for the rock screens, they get used by anybody and everybody. Mines are probably the second in line for a mining operation, so they can screen down their rocks to the proper size, get them in their crushers. But we've had them used for glass recycling, concrete recycling. We've had firewood companies use them so that they can get dirt out of the firewood because they need to have it clean so they can sell it. Scrap metal recycling. I mean, anytime somebody needs to screen something, composting is another one that's huge with these screeners because they have to have a specific size of soil to make topsoil. And so there's a broad market for it, but we really target the construction industry because I feel like in the United States, between construction and mining, they're probably the two competitors for who moves the most dirt.
Okay. So it is sort of this, in some ways, contractors, but contractors who more have this lean towards dirt moving is sort of where your angle is, and dirt management, I suppose.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. And how have the lean principles been landing with your family? Did they know anything? This is a small family-owned business. Have you been having to teach them about lean and just good process fundamentals?
Yeah, because my dad, he's got a long construction background, but he never had the education. So he learned through the School of Hard Knocks, and just kind of made his own way there. And so he really was excited when I went to that program because he got to get insights from me about techniques and, things like lean management that he never got to learn fully. He had maybe an idea about it, but wasn't too keen on the specifics of it. So he's really learning that and how we can manage our shop processes better. I definitely get to be a teacher a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. And I will say, for everyone listening, nothing brings family together like good process management. That's what I say in my family, at least. I don't know if that's going to land anywhere else.
I agree. I agree with that because, a bad process can hinder things and make stuff more stressful and harder on everybody. So, making sure that you understand your process and knowing how to manage it is important because it makes everything easier.
Yeah, and also a lot of times when you have bad process management or lack of it, that's where emotions start flaring. When you have problems, you don't know who to point to, you don't know how to manage them. It can ruin good businesses, but it can especially cause strain in family businesses. So I'm glad it sounds like you guys are sitting on the right starting point. Well, Ragan, it's been a pleasure talking to you, learning about your story, learning about your company. I'm really excited for you guys. It sounds like you're on a great trajectory. If people out there want to share with contractors in the network or they want to find you, what's the best way to look you up? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you guys can visit our website, beariron.com. That's BEARIRON.com. You can see all of our products on there. And if you guys need any type of custom steel manufacturing, we offer things like that as well. We're always happy to at least consider a project. But our bread and butter is making the products that we make and getting them in the hands of the customers that need them the most.
That sounds great. Well, thanks again. Thanks for coming on the show. And for those of you listening, join us again for the Process Lab next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.